Hey, this is Patrick Rogers with the Exitable Business Podcast, where we are the best in the world at helping CEOs grow, scale, and exit their companies for millions more than they previously thought possible. And in today's episode, this is going to be one of the foundational episodes. We're going to do this episode, and the following two episodes are really going to be focused around segmented towards the size of your business, because how you scale, grow, and exit a company that's less than $1 million is very different for how you scale, grow, and exit a company between 1 and 10 million, which is also very different for how you scale, grow, and exit a company if you're greater than $1 million, right? So in this episode, we're going to talk about if you're less than $1 million in revenue, we're going to talk about what you need to do to be able to sell your company successfully. And the hard truth is that when you're less than $1 million, okay, the challenge is that you're less than $1 million, right? So anytime companies are less than $1 million, I mean, I hate to be so obvious about it, but anytime you're less than $1 million, there's a couple things that happen. One, your multiples that you get. And by the way, if you don't know how you calculate the what your company is going to sell for, you basically take your when you're that low of a company, you talk in terms of sellers' discretionary earnings, and we can get more into that in later episodes what that is, but it's basically thinking of it like your net profit. Okay, so sellers' discretionary earnings times some kind of a multiple, and that multiple is going to depend on a lot of things, mainly focused around the back end of your company, the intangibles, how things are running. Does the business run without you, right? So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but let me back up. And one of the first things that you have to do when you're looking to exit your company is, ideally you're doing this homework, and ideally you're listening to this and you have like 3 to 5 years to prepare your company for exit. So the reason is there's a lot of things that we need to be doing in the back end to show a trend of provable things when it comes time to sell, right? So if you don't have a trend of this, of what we're talking about when we dig into the details, then it's hard to believe, right? If you just all of a sudden fix your books and you don't have a trend of growth and a trend of a certain amount of money of profit, then it's not as believable, right? You need, in order to get a certain profit margin that they'll be able to use for calculating the value of the company, you need to have at least 2 years there for it to be verifiable and believable, right? If all of a sudden we snap overnight and our profit margins go from 20 to 40%, well, is that sustainable, right? It's really tough. So these are things we need time in place. And just the truth of it is that if you have 3 to 5 years, you can 3 to 5 times the value or more that you could currently get for your business now. Okay. So, but one of the first things you have to do, no matter what size your company is, one of the first things that you have to do is you have to determine what the value is that you need to be able to exit, okay, to be able to retire. And so that's a whole nother episode that we can go into, but we're going to want to calculate what you need to retire. And so you obviously you have to factor in things like brokerage fees and taxes and other things like that. You know, what's the net amount that you need to be able to walk away from to live comfortably? Okay. And there's some rules of thumb and things that we can go through at another time. But so that's the first thing, is what do we need to retire? And then you have to know what your company currently valuates for now, right? So, and believe me, whatever you think it is, probably cut that in by half or a third, or maybe even a quarter, depending on, just depending, right? So most people, you know, it's kind of like the home that you live in. It's our baby, right? Nobody wants to tell you nobody wants to hear that your baby's ugly, right? And so the hard matter of the truth is that sometimes your baby's ugly, and the company that you think is worth, you're going to get 1.5 million for, well, that's just not going to happen. And just I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients we were working with, he's looking at acquisition phase, and this is an HVAC company. We were looking at it, and these guys are asking $350,000 for the company. We're like, okay, let's dig in. Let's get some of the details. And as we dig in, we find out that it's 2 guys by themselves, no employees, no systems, no processes, nothing's in place. There's no recurring revenue, none of that stuff. And their net total income is like 100,000. And so these guys think that they're going to get a 3.5 multiple over a company that, what are you buying? You're not buying a business, you're buying a job. Well, the challenge is that nobody wants to buy a job. Okay. You might be able to get bought out by one of your competitors if they're bigger than you. But you're sure as heck not going to get a 3.5 multiple for it. The average multiple for businesses that are less than $1 million is between 2 and 3 of the seller's discretionary earnings. And the ones that are getting a 3 are ones that have employees in place. They have processes in place. They have systems in place. And the business is pretty much running without the owner, or at least to a great extent, right? Those are companies that have the intangibles in line. They probably have they have a lot of recurring revenue associated with the business. So the concept there is that it's all about risk. Okay. So if you have recurring revenue in place and a maintenance program in place, then they don't have to go out and sell new business to ensure the longevity and the success of the business. Does that make sense? So the more of that's in place, the higher the value, the higher the multiple. When none of that is in place, well, like that one company, what are you doing? You're not buying any contracts. You're buying a company that has a little bit of reputation. They get all of their clients from, word of mouth. So I guess that's good, but sure as heck not a multiple of 2 or multiple of 3. So, I know where you're at. I've coached hundreds of companies in the million and less range. You probably have, 3 to 8 people. You're probably working 50 hours a week. You're probably doing most of the sales yourself, most of the estimating, whatever your kind of business is, you're kind of the main person for the sales process. You might be getting most of your business from word of mouth because you have a really good reputation. You're probably doing a lot of the, key relationship maintenance yourself. You've probably tried to hire the right people, but maybe because your margins aren't quite right, or you're just not making enough money, you can't afford any more people to really, grow properly. And now, you're looking to retire, or you're looking to sell your business, move on to another project, whatever that is. So the main challenge, I've kind of talked a little bit about it, is, believe it or not, it's you. Okay. You are the main challenge. And what I mean by that is you are in the way of the growth. And it makes it very hard for a new person to come in and buy your business if you're the person who's doing the sales, doing the key relationships, doing the estimating. If you're involved in the business in the day-to-day, then it's really hard for somebody to come in unless they're a competitor of yours and they don't need your systems, they don't need your processes. They're just going to be buying your accounts, and that's an asset sale. And that's all they're paying for is those accounts. You're not going to get a 3 multiple or a 4 multiple, as we talk about. And that's one of the things, is one of the key things on why it's important for you to get to 7 figures is once you get above 7 figures, you get up to the 2 million, 2.5 million range, your multiples automatically jump. Okay. So like I said, the average multiple in your range is maybe 2, 2.5. Okay. When you go up to a higher company, once you get up to 7 figures, mid 7 figures, you're now talking about a company that's going to pull in a multiple of average, maybe 3 to 5. Okay. So you're in a whole different realm, because just by the nature of the beast, right? In order for a company to exist at that higher range, right, they know that they've already gotten some things going, right? There's already systems in place. The owners may be involved, but we could probably pull them out a lot easier. Okay. So therefore it's going to pull in a lot higher of a price. Okay. So, so that's one of the things that you want to do, ideally, if you have time. And that's why companies that are smaller, that are less than $1 million, they're just not selling. Or if they are, they're not selling for anywhere where you want. Okay. So it really just depends on what is your retirement goals and what do you need. And just the hard facts are, it's very difficult to find a buyer for a business that's under $1 million, that's going to pay you more than 1 to 1.5 times that salary and profits, right? People don't want a business that requires them to work a full-time job unless it's a competitor buying you out, or if it's a strategic buyout, right? The other thing, which typically doesn't happen if your business is less than $1 million, is that you have some kind of IP or some kind of a technology or some kind of a process that your competitors can't and don't have, right? You're that unique that they're willing to pay you, okay, it's called goodwill, a very handsome amount for that business, even though the profits are not there. So I hope that hopefully that makes sense. And again, they don't want to take over your hassles and stresses. So if you're working a full-time job, it's just really hard to find those people. And by the way, a quick fun fact, not that fun, but in today's day and age where we're at, there's so many business owners, so many baby boomers, right? We've got that big hump of baby boomers. Well, they're retiring. They're retiring in droves. I think we're at like 15,000 baby boomers a day right now are retiring. I don't know the exact number of businesses. I can look it up, but only 20% of the businesses that are actually being put on the market even sell. Okay. That's not even counting the number of businesses that go to brokers to try to sell their business, but the brokers tell them they have an unsellable business. They don't even go to market. So in this time and age, if you want to sell your business and you're less than $1 million, you have got to get there early and get your business above the $1 million mark. Okay. So what do you need to do to get there? Okay. So a little bit of a 4-step process. Okay. And I call it the 4 P's. For when you're less than $1 million, there's 4 P's that we need to focus on to get you above it. Number 1 is your product. Okay. Your product or your service. And typically the reason that one of the main challenges that you've been having about getting above that $1 million is we really haven't had, you probably, okay, let me back up. If the question I'll have for you that I'll ask you is, how have you been pricing your services or product? And my guess is that your answer will be, well, we're probably pretty comparable to the market, maybe even a little bit less. Okay. And that is the plight of the entrepreneur that's going to stay less than $1 million, because what we need to have to be able to scale above that $1 million and be able to triple, quadruple the value that your company can get is you need to have proper margins to do so. Okay. So we're going to take a look, or you need to take a look at your product and your pricing and position yourself so that you have proper margins to be able to do the marketing that you need to do. Okay. It's just 2 things that we need that money for, that extra margin. And by the way, margins, increasing margins, it doesn't cost you any more in your bottom line, right? So we want to be increasing our margins. Okay. That's going to get us money for marketing, and it's also going to get us money for people. Okay. You need both of those things to be able to jump to the next echelon, if you will, or stage, right? So first of all, we get the product right. And again, that's really forming and creating a proper, unique selling proposition that's different from your competitors. Okay. So I really want you to think about that is how we are able to charge more than what the average person is. We differentiate ourselves. Now there's a lot of different ways to differentiate ourselves. We could, we will at some point, I'm sure there'll be an episode we'll do about that, but you have to create a business. If you're going to charge more, there has to be a value over and above what everybody else is doing. Right. And it's not hard to do. Okay. And that is how we create that. Okay. So that's number 1, product. And the other thing is, do you have any recurring revenue? Right. Recurring revenue, believe it or not, is going to help you leap that gap as well. So first of all, we got to get the right product and offering. Secondly, we got to get you the right pricing. You have to set your pricing to go after a certain gross margin for your industry and for your competitive space. So you have to do a little bit of research, find out what your competitors are charging, and then make sure we're designing a margin based on that to achieve so you can invest in your growth. Okay. The next P is promote. So now we've got P for product, P for pricing. The next P is promote. And then the last P is people. So we pretty much have them all. But promote, now you have to employ an effective marketing campaign. So most of my clients that are in that less than $1 million range, right? Well, they're there because they're getting maybe 5 to 10% growth a year. It's good, sustainable growth, but you go up and down, maybe up and down here. If you're involved with the business yourself as the owner, you do a marketing campaign, then you get involved, you get so busy that you turn it off, or you're like so many other people where most of your business comes in from word of mouth. And the problem with word of mouth is you can't control that, right? How do we control a business? How do we scale and grow if I don't have a switch to turn on for marketing to get more business to come in? You don't. You're relying on word of mouth. So you need to create an effective marketing program and a sales program that converts more people. So once we have that, we have P for promote. And lastly is people. We have to get the right people, the key people that are going to help you bridge that gap. You need to bring in people to get it to the point where you are removed from the day-to-day operations. or at least, servicing the client. At this point, that's your primary thing. You can still do sales for a while, but once you get into 1.5, 2 million, you do not want to be doing sales. You want to be having a team of people there. So if you could put all this together, implement the 4 Ps for you, what would that mean for you and your company? Well, it's going to mean that within a very short period of time, you're going to have an exitable business, much more so than what you have now. It's probably going to be worth 3 to 4 times what your current value is. Okay. That's huge additional value in your pocket. It doesn't have to be lost for pennies on the dollar for your competitors. Like that HVAC client that my HVAC business that my client and I were looking at, that thing is nobody's going to pay that much money for that. And what's going to happen is they're going to put it up for market. It's going to sit there. It's going to be 6 months there. And then it's going to be a year there. And at that time, what's happening? These guys have their mind set. Where's their mind? Their mind's in like retirement. I've got the honeydew list. I can't wait to do this. I can go golfing. I can't wait to do this, go traveling. That's where their mind is at. What ends up happening is, by that business, is you end up losing clients. Your performance degrades over time because you're ready to retire. You're already somewhere else. Right. And so what ends up happening is it just whittles away, and eventually they have nothing, and they end up selling it to their competitor for pennies on the dollar. Whereas if they would have taken the time 3 to 5 years ahead of time, or even 1 to 2 years ahead of time, right? If you don't have 3 to 5 years, you can still do a lot now. It's just, you're not going to be able to do as much and get as much as if you could take it to that 1.5, $2 million range, right? Get the multiples higher, because you're just printing money. It's just printing money, right? So, but if you are able to do this 3 to 5 years ahead of time, you're also going to create employment stability for your team members, right? Because what happens if you don't take this serious? You have 3 to 8 people that you're employing right now, however many you have, right? You're going to have to let them go, because your competitor is going to buy those contracts from you, and they might take 1 or 2 people at most. But if you do this right, if you create a company that runs without you, you have an asset that's it's transferable value that you'll be able to get paid handsomely on. Okay. And at the same time, you're going to attract the best buyers. Okay. A lot of people ask me, where do I find the best buyers? Well, you got to first create the business. If you create it, they will come. They're going to find you. You get a broker, and then they'll find themselves. And you always want to use a broker, by the way. I don't think you're going to sell this business on your own. You could. If you've done it before, then go for it. But if you have not done mergers and acquisitions, if you've not sold a company, do not try to do this yourself. It's well worth a 10% investment. Okay. And this is going to get you into retirement with much more money, much sooner than you would ever otherwise thought. And think about that. What's the A versus B? Option one is do nothing and just put it up for sale and watch it whittle it down. It's going to take 2-3 years anyways before that money's all gone and the business is gone. Why not just get it done now, put in a little bit of extra effort, and get your business to be more valuable? Okay. So I'm hoping that this resonated with you, and I'm hoping that you're at a place where you're able to receive this. And if you do have a business less than $1 million, that you're able to do something with it. And as always, we at exitable.io, we definitely help people out as well. So if there's anything we can do, feel free to reach out and let us know. Other than that, that's the end of our first official episode, and we'll see you on the next one. In our next episode, we're going to dive into kind of the same format. We're going to talk about, how to grow, scale, and exit a company in the $1 million to $10 range. So we'll see you in that episode. Thanks a lot. Take care.